If you have an interior door that's damaged and worn, you don't have to put off repairing it any longer. The replacement isn't too difficult. Just follow these easy steps. There are several ways to replace a door. Now you can replace the entire casing, which might be the way to go if the frame is badly damaged. To see that installation, watch how to install a pre-hung exterior door at Lowe's.com/videos. The instructions will also work for an interior door. We're replacing just the door and hardware. Now there are many different types of doors available, so follow your manufacturer's directions. The tools and materials we'll need for our project are a new door, a hammer, screwdriver, tape measure, pencil, a combination square, sawhorses, clamps, a chisel, a door lock installation kit, a drill with bits, a circular saw, a level, work gloves, dust mask, and safety glasses. You might also need a plane, shims, cardboard, and a utility knife. We're also installing new hardware. You can find detailed instructions with the tools and materials list for this project at Lowe's.com/videos. Now, before we remove the old door, we're going to take a few measurements. Measure the width and height of the old door and use these measurements when purchasing a new one. We can also use the old door as a template for the new one. But when installing it, it's a good idea to check the bottom clearance. That way you can correct for wear and changes in flooring. To do that, measure upward from the floor along the jamb. Make a mark at 10 inches on the door. Move over to the other edge and make another mark at 10 inches. We'll use these marks later. Now you can take out the hinge pins. Use a hammer and a screwdriver or a nail set to remove the pins from the hinges. Then remove the door. Next, we need to determine the location of the hinges and lock set. With our new door sitting on sawhorses, set the old one on top. Now remove the lock set and hinges from the old door. Then make sure the doors are flush at the top and hinge sides. Use clamps to hold them in place. We're going to have to mortise the hinges on the new door. Now, if you're using the same hinges or your new ones are the same size, here's an easy way to mark the new door. Line up a combination square with the hinge mortise and mark the top and bottom of the new mortise. Use the square to get the distance from the door edge to the side of the hinge and transfer that to the new door. Mark the other hinge locations too. Use a hinge as a guide to mark the depth of the mortise. Also mark the lock set location. Now before we take away the old door, we need to check a few things. If the new door is slightly wider, you can cut or plane the non-hinge side. We also have to make sure that the new door has proper clearance over the floor and threshold. But don't use the bottom edge of the old door as a guide. Instead, use the marks we made earlier while the old door was in place. Transfer the 10-inch mark we made on the old door onto the new door. Make a mark 9 7/8 of an inch below that mark to account for 1/8 inch clearance. Mark the other edge of the door. Make a straight line between the marks and remove the bottom of the door with a circular saw. With the old door out of the way, we can cut mortises for the hinges. Carefully use a hammer and chisel to cut around the marks. Relief cuts make removal easier, but don't go deeper than your mark. Once you've cut your mortises, drill pilot holes. For the lock set, you can use a template kit. Line up the jig with your mark and attach it to the door with screws. Drill the holes for the lock set according to the manufacturer's instructions. If you're going to paint your door, this is a good time to do it. Then add the hinges and lock set. For tips on installing a lock set, watch How to Replace a Lock Set at Lowe's.com/videos. Now let's work on the jamb. Remove the old hinges. Hold one of the new hinges in place and check its position. It should be flush with the casing. If the mortise isn't deep enough, remove some of the casing with a chisel. If the mortise is too deep, cut a piece of cardboard or wood to shim the hinge. Then attach the hinges with screws. You should also replace the strike if you have new hardware. Now that we have the hardware attached, we can set the door on the hinges. If you're working by yourself, you can place some shims on the floor to help hold up the door. Line up the hinges and insert the pins. You might have to work the door back and forth to get the pins in place. The last thing to do is to check that the door closes properly and make any necessary adjustments. A new door and an updated look for this house. For more home improvement how-tos, check out our lineup of projects at Lowe's.com/videos.